Jumping straight into it then, let's first go over the starters. Of course you can choose one of the starter Tanorians at the very beginning of the game as your starter, but you can also get them by using conservation incenses. And right now in the game, there are two ways that you can get these incenses right now. The first method is to buy them from the Tano stations after beating the first stadium and after reaching Tamer level 15. And the second method is to get them as rewards from the raids, which to my knowledge can only be obtained from the 7-star raids. But once you have a conservation incense, you can use it on any route, and for the next 15 minutes, you'll be able to encounter all of the starters as overworld spawns. All you gotta do once you use the incense is run up to them to initiate the encounter. Once you get your Rabush, you can evolve it into Lunaire, starting at level 16, and once you have your Lunaire, you can evolve it into Gardemis, starting at level 36. Once you have your Charkill, you can evolve it into Serprince, starting at level 16, and once you have your Serprince, you can evolve it into Ignidol, starting at level 36. Once you have your True Aqua, you can evolve it into Aquazol, starting at level 16, and once you have your Aquazol, you can evolve it into G-Spirit, starting at level 36. Next up, let's go over Notent. You can find this Tanorian on Tanaka, which is Route 1, Prelude Plains, which is Route 2, and Axworth, which has Route 3 on the outskirts of the town. And once you have your Notent, you can evolve it into Glamcone, starting at level 22. Next up is Eyaspire, which you can find at Tanaka, which is Route 1, Prelude Plains, which is Route 2, Kaigan Canyon, and Kaigan Cliffs. Once you have your Eyaspire, you can evolve it into Hawkadet, starting at level 18, and then once you have your Hawkadet, you can evolve it into Peregrievous, starting at level 38. Next up, let's go over Calypillar, which can be found on Tanaka, which is Route 1, and Prelude Plains, which is Route 2. And it actually has a split evolution depending on what time of day you evolve it at. If you level Calypillar up to level 7 during the day, you'll get the day form evolution of Calytomb. And if you level your Calypillar up to level 7 during the night, you'll get the night form evolution of Calytomb. And once you have your day form Calytomb, you can evolve it into Calyght, starting at level 12. And once you have your night form Calytomb, you can evolve it into Dracalya, starting at level 12. Next up, let's go over Doopy, which you can find at Prelude Plains, which is Route 2, as a fairly uncommon encounter. And once you have your Doopy, you can evolve it into Doopybara, starting at level 18. Next up, let's go over Kitweed, which you can find at Prelude Plains, which is Route 2, and Nature's Reserve, which is Route 4, as a route rare. And once you have your Kitweed, you can evolve it into Pufferal, starting at level 30, and once you have your Pufferal, you can evolve it into Dandylion, starting at level 40. Next up, let's go over Rootrake, which can be found on the outskirts of Aquworth, which is Route 3, and on Nature's Reserve, which is Route 4. Once you have your Rootrake, you can evolve it into Bushrake, starting at level 16, and once you have your Bushrake, you can evolve it into Arborake, starting at level 30. Next up, let's go over Purrlazy, which you can find on the outskirts of Aquworth, which is Route 3, and on Kaigan Cliffs. And then once you have your Purrlazy, you can evolve it into Terrougar, starting at level 23. Next up, let's go over Stagurai, which you can find at Nature's Reserve, which is Route 4. And once you have your Stagurai, you can evolve it into Dynastogun, starting at level 22. Next up, let's go over Bombeetle, which you can find on Nature's Reserve, which is Route 4. And once you have a Bombeetle, you can evolve it into Ballisect, starting at level 25. Next up, let's go over Manxo, which you can find on the outskirts of Axworth Town, which is Route 3, Nature's Reserve, which is Route 4, and on Pontero Pasture. And once you have Manxo, you can evolve it into Dualram, starting at level 25. Next up, let's go over Growhog, which can only be found on Pontero Pasture. And once you have your Growhog, you can evolve it into Bjorkchop, starting at level 25. Next up, let's go over Psycalf, which can only be found on Pontero Pasture. And once you have a Psycalf, you can evolve it into Cowsmic, starting at level 25. Next up, let's go over Chickbin, which can only be found on Pontero Pasture as a rare encounter. Also, Chickbin actually has a split evolution depending on the gender, so you'll need to catch a male and female Chickbin. If you have a female Chickbin, you can evolve it into Magicken, starting at level 29, and if you have a male Chickbin, you can evolve it into Akuster, starting at level 29. Next up, let's go over Radlil, which you can only find on Pontero Pontero Pasture. And once you have Redlil, you can evolve it into Turnish, starting at level 10. And once we have Turnish, you can evolve it into Rootabush, starting at level 24. Next up, let's go over Citron, which as of right now can only be found on Pontero Pasture. Also, Citron has a split evolution, which is determined by gender. The male Citrons are green, which resemble a lime and can be found in the normal grass encounters. And the female Citrons are yellow, which resemble a lemon and can be found in the normal grass, or by interacting with the lemon trees which are scattered around the route, which have a chance to give you the lemon items or a female Citron encounter. Once you have female Citron, you can evolve it into Citrine, starting at level 21. Once you have male Citron, you can evolve it into Citrine, starting at level 21. And once you have female Citrine, you can evolve it into Citrus, starting at level 37. And once you have a male Citrine, you can evolve it into Zestric, starting at level 37. Next up, let's go over Maccry, which as of right now can only be found on Kygan Cliffs. And once you have a Maccry, you can evolve it into Beakon, starting at level 20. Next up, let's go over Spooder, which as of right now can only be found at Whispering Woods. And once you have a Spooder, you can evolve it into Scarachnids, starting at level 20. Next, let's go over Usbee, which can only be found at Fable Falls as of right now. And once you have a Usbee, you can evolve it into Wattsp, starting at level 21. Next up, let's go over Cornica, which as of right now can only be found at Fable Falls. And once you have a Cornica, you can evolve it into Sarika, starting at level 22. And once you have a Sarika, you can evolve it into Copernicus, starting at level 32. Next up, let's go over Drippo, which as of right now can only be found at Fable Falls, and also as of right now, it doesn't have an evolution, it's just a single stage. Next up, let's go over Lumisaur, which can only be found at Malachite Mines, and also it doesn't evolve, it's also just a one stage. Next up, let's go over Antroop, which can only be found on Route 5. Once you have Antroop, you can evolve it into Antikid, starting at level 21, and once you have Antikid, you can evolve it into Antera, starting at level 30. Although this might be a glitch, because apparently the evolution method is meant to require you to survive a fire type attack, which I never did, I just leveled up to level 30, so in the future if this is ever changed, the quickest way to do this is to battle against the first trainer on Nature's Reserve, which is Route 4, because he has 3 Bombeetles. Next up, let's go over Cheerdeer, which can only be found at Whispering Woods. And once you have Cheerdeer, you can evolve it into Cherodoe, starting at level 31. Next up, let's go over Floriridant, which as of right now can only be found at Whispering Woods, and it doesn't evolve, it's just a one stage. Next up, let's go over Bellbuzz, which as of right now can only be found at Whispering Woods, and it doesn't evolve, it's just a one stage. At least for now, we have been told that it might get one in the future. Next up, let's go over Korok, which can be found at Kygan Canyon and in the mine depths. Also, Korok has got a split evolution, which is determined by the gender, although Korok doesn't look different depending on its gender, so make sure just to check the gender icon when catching them. If you have a male Korok, you can evolve it into Koropunk, starting at level 23, and if you have a female Korok, you can evolve it into Gemistar, starting at level 23. Next up, let's go over Chromeleon, which as of right now can only be found at Malachite Mines, and it doesn't evolve, it's just a one stage, although it has got different forms, which just changes its appearance, nothing like stat-wise. Next up, let's go over Funglow, which can be found in Malachite Mines, Kygan Canyon, Route 5, and Dewfall Den. Also, it doesn't evolve, it's just a one stage. Next up, let's go over Moleroot, which can be found in Malachite Mines and is also a one stage, it doesn't evolve. Next up, let's go over Bulldog, which can only be found in Malachite Mines and also doesn't evolve, it's just a one stage. Next up, let's go over Cashroom, which right now can only be found in Malachite Mines and also doesn't evolve, is just a one stage. Next up, let's go over Lilite, which you can find in the Mine Depths, Kygan Canyon, and on Route 5. And once you have a Lilite, you can evolve it into Dracor, starting at level 18. And then once you have a Dracor, you can evolve it into Constructor, starting at level 30. Next up, let's go over Faldrake, which as of right now we can only find in Malachite Mines, the Depths, and it is a really rare encounter, like a 1%, so 1 in 100, and it also doesn't evolve, it's just a single stage. Next up, let's go over Termitate, which you're only able to find in Fable Falls, and it's just a one stage, it does not evolve. Next up, let's go over Chirruff, which you can only find at Kygan Cliffs, and it doesn't evolve, it's just a single stage. Next up, let's go over Chinsina, which you can only find right now on Route 5, and it doesn't evolve, it's just a single stage. Next up, let's go over Sungadum, which you can only find in Whispering Woods as of right now, and it also doesn't evolve, it's just a single stage. Next up, let's go over Fuzzimp, which as of right now you can only get from Kygun Cliffs. And once you have Fuzzimp, you can evolve it into Striogre starting at level 26. Next up, let's go over Opaline, which as of right now you can only find in Dewfall Den, and it's actually a really rare encounter, it's about 1 in 70. But once you have your Opaline, you can evolve it into Vipress starting at level 32. Next up, let's go over Asteroid. And you can actually find this Tanorian anywhere in the game as long as the Shooting Stars weather is currently active. Next up, let's go over Clemitten, which actually has 2 different forms depending on which weather is currently active. You can get the Wind form during whenever the Wind weather is currently active throughout the entirety of the game, and you can then get the Rain form during the Rain weather when it is active also throughout the entirety of the game. And once you get your Wind form of Clemitten, you can evolve it into a Bloomper starting at level 15, while the Wind weather is currently active, you can only do it during the Wind. And once you get the Rain form of Clemitten, you can evolve it into Funeko starting at level 15, as long as the Rain weather is active, you can't do it without the Rain. Next up, let's go over Snowkit, which as of right now you can only find on Kygun Cliffs. And once you have your Snowkit, you can evolve it into Rakhold starting at level 24. And once you have your Rakhold, you can evolve it into Tanukai starting at level 35. Next up, let's go over Tombini, which you can actually find anywhere in the game, but the encounter method is you have to knock out a shiny that you find. And once you knock out the shiny that you found, it'll be put into your inventory. You don't have to do any encounters for it, which, yeah, is a pretty rough encounter methods. But once you have your Tombini, you can evolve it into Oblusk starting at level 8, and you also have to knock out 3 Tanorians. And then once you have your Oblusk, you can evolve it into Morsolusk starting at level 16, and you have to knock out another 3 Tanorians. And finally, let's go over the legendary Flowither, which you can find the boss battle in Kygun Cliffs. Between the Tano Station and the Skylift, you'll see some vines which you can interact with, and here you can follow the path to find a secret cave. Once you're inside of the cave, you can interact with the Flowither to start a boss battle, where the Flowither has taken over a Dandylion. And once you beat this boss fight, you can then find Flowither everywhere in the game at a rate of 1 in 1,000. And yeah, there's no way to increase these odds, or at least as of right now.